Hey everyone, my name is Judyta Borkowska, and I'm coming here today to talk to you about strategical aspects of the UX. So I have been doing a bit of reading recently, and I found out that there isn't an awful lot of resources out there talking about design strategy. So here I am trying to close this little gap. To get everybody on the same page, and let's define what design is at the very basic level. Personally, I like to think of design as a problem-solving method. There seems to be a common misconception out there that designers equal creatives, which is not necessarily true. Obviously, you have some very skilled designers that are really good at art and being creative. But I think design at the very basic level is trying to solve a problem with the use of visuals, which is the art aspect that people seem to fixate on. So I have this little neat definition for you. Design is a problem-solving method characterized by the use of visuals. And you can't solve something if you don't know what it is. So at the very beginning, we need to start with something called problem statement. So think of it as a timeline. We are here at the very beginning. We have the problem, and at the other end, we have the goal. And design is figuring out how do we get there, the center of the line. So I'm going to give you an example of a problem statement, just to illustrate how it could look like. It's just one sentence, basically, but that sentence is going to drive your whole design exercise. So, for example, we need a way to locate and remove discriminatory graffiti in London because we want to see racism eradicated. So I have highlighted the problem and the goal in this sentence, and it's very clear that you have a problem that currently there is a lot of discriminatory graffiti in London. And why do we want to do this? Is because we want to see racism eradicated. That's our higher level goal, the end goal, right? If that happens, we have succeeded, right? And the designer's goal is to figure out the way how to get there. And that is called strategy. When we have the problem statement, it's going to be much easier for us to reach the goal because it's something that can guide us throughout the way. And whenever we start a new project, we should always ask, what is your problem statement? What is it trying to solve? What are you trying to achieve? And we should never assume that we know what the goal is. So never assume. And the reason is because when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So never assume, because that's what happens when you do. So as I said, having a good problem statement increases your success chance. And why do we do that? We're trying to see the way from the problem to the goal in one short sentence that can guide us. And how do we get there? Well, ask any person, ask 100 people, you'll get 100 different replies. How do we get there? But there are three major things that you need to keep in mind. How do we get there and make money? So you will be asked that from a business perspective, because ultimately companies are there to make money, right? And as UX designers, we need to also facilitate their needs. How do we get there with the stuff we have? That's the development. part of it. So you can do a brilliant prototype, beautiful art, beautiful splash screens, but we only have a limited technology that we can use to make it. And I guarantee you will get some pushback from your concerned devs about feasibility of your vision. When it comes to actual implementation, there will be a lot of questions. So we need to think about that beforehand. Also, how do we get there and have fun? Well, having fun is a broad statement, but yeah, that's what users want. They just want a pleasant experience. They don't want to get angry at your product, at your solution. So here we are, UX designers. What do we want? How do we get there? So we want to keep everybody somewhat happy. By everyone, I mean the business development and the users. We have to connect the dots on the way. So I put somewhat in that sentence because obviously we all know it doesn't always play out as we intended to. But somewhat is a good place to start. So here is all that put into one succinct sentence. How can we solve the problem and make people happy with the assets we have and make profit while we at it? That is the big UX question. And if you find a way to solve that question, then yeah, that's your UX designer sweet spot. And I don't know if you've seen this previously, that triangle. So it talks about viability, the feasibility and desirability. If your solution tackles all those 3 points, it has a really high chance of success. So viability, that's from the business perspective, is that solution viable? Means, is it going to make us money? Feasibility is from the development perspective. Is it possible with the tools that we have? And desirability, do people want it? Because at the end of the day, if nobody wants it, we have a problem there. And well, enough of the introduction. Let's talk about the actual design strategy. So design strategy's purpose is to have a way of getting from the problem to the goal. It's not just a shot in the dark. There are steps that we can take to increase our success chance. And I'm going to ask you a few questions that design strategy should cover. To begin with, what is the current state of things? We're at the very beginning. We only have a problem. We don't have any solutions yet, so we have to figure out what are we working with. We need to find out about our users and market. So that would be a very first step. Then we need to find out what kind of technology do we have available. That's from the dev perspective. And also quite important, what finances do we have? Who's going to pay for it? Who are the stakeholders? What is the goal? So we're going to look into the future and think about what is the user's ultimate goal and what is the business ultimate goal. We already know the business ultimate goal, right? If you think back to the example, we want to see racism eradicated, but what is the user goal? How does the user benefit from that? And how do we get there? That is the middle line between the problem and the goal. So the actual technical aspect of how do we get there, you have some really good design frameworks out there. For example, Design Sprint, Lean UX, or Design Thinking. Whichever you choose, it depends really on the company that you're working with, the clients that you're working with. Personally, I prefer design thinking because it includes that quite important step to me, which is empathize. Yeah, but it depends what your company capabilities are. For example, design sprint, you can run along the Agile Scrum teams. Yeah, just pick one, whichever suits you best. And one question that everybody seems to forget about is, how will we know if we got there, right? We can produce solutions upon solutions, but at which point do we say, right, we have reached our goal, this is it, guys, we succeeded or we failed? And for that, we have all those scary words like revenue, conversion, engagement, awareness. Oh my God. UX designers need to look at those things and review progress on a regular basis. It's not as flashy aspect to the UX profession as prototyping and ideation, but the data-driven design is really important for UX people. Yeah, please guys, don't forget about measuring your success as you're gonna iterate your prototypes into infinity and beyond. Very important step. Do not forget, define your success. Why am I talking about design process? It's because designers, we have a lot of creative freedom, right? We're not equal to artists, but we do have a lot of creative freedom. And at the end of the day, we are here to solve a problem and we're getting paid for it. And there is time and place for everything, right? There is time for work and time for play. And having a defined process makes this whole design consistent and gives you a dedicated time and space where you can unleash your creative freedom. So you're not prototyping and creating journey maps and forever, iteration is important, and that is a part of the design process, but there is time and place for everything. At some point, your ideation phase ends and you start prototyping. At some point, your prototyping phase ends and you start developing, and then you loop back. So there is time and place for everything. So don't think about design process as restricting your creative freedoms. It's out there to give you that freedom when the time is right. And another thing, why shouldn't you discard the strategy and design process? It's because challenge promotes growth. When you give yourself the restriction of time and space, you will come up with better ideas and you'll come up with ideas faster because you're on a limited schedule and you have to work with a certain constraint. So it serves both in your professional life to have some sort of integrity and your personal life and your personal growth. So yeah, please consider strategy and design process with your next big design process. And who knows, you might just love it. And a little summary for you. So I said many times, design is not art. Obviously, designers can be artists and they can be quite creative, but design does not equal art. There is some sort of overlap, but at the very basic, design is a problem-solving method. You have a problem and you have a goal, and design is figuring out how to get there while using visuals. So a good problem statement is essential for success. If you know what you're doing, if you know what you're solving, and you know where you want to be, it's much easier to figure out how to get there. It's much easier to formulate strategy. And UX as a profession is the act of balancing the feasibility, viability, and desirability with strong focus on user needs. I think a lot of UX designers, they're big user advocates. User experience professional in real life out there, we have other aspects that we also have to look after, like business needs and developer feasibility, technological feasibility. We can't discard everything else and go blindly user needs. As harsh as it sounds, that's the real life. We are employed to solve problems, and we get paid for it. And if we can solve those problems with a high focus on user needs, that is absolute win. And design strategy, design process, they don't restrict your creative freedom. They only give you time and space for it, the right time and space. So if you apply design strategy and follow a design process, and who knows, that constraint might help you grow professionally, personally, because challenge promotes growth. And very last point, UX design is not easy. I know it's a lot to take in. We have a lot to do as UX designers. We have to empathize, we have to do ideation, we have to do prototype and design, and think about strategy, and think about business goals, and think about all these things. It's not easy. I wish you very best luck out there, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. And whenever anyone tells you, oh, UX designer, I can do some prototyping as well, tell them, no, actually, UX design is not as easy as you think. Design is not just, drawing squares and buttons. It's more than that. It's strategy, it's design process, it's discovery, it's finding out how to get from one point to the other, keeping all those three parties happy, somewhat happy. There's never ideal path out there, while keeping everybody happy. I think that's all from me. Please feel free to research more into design strategy. I hope I piqued your curiosity about it, and have a beautiful day.